No.
Alright, y'all, we're gonna get started. Thank you for bringing the weather. It's pretty bad. We get it. I would introduce her pretty thoroughly, but this is Kristina Kirkenaer-Hart, and she's basically going to do that herself in a second, so I'm going to let her do that.
Yeah.
But I will say first, she's a lovely human and a member of our board, so we're very grateful to have her.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everybody. So glad to have you. So tonight I'm going to speak a little bit about what and why and how all of artist bios and elevator pitches matter. And then we will actually turn this into a workshop for you guys. And you will workshop some of your own elevator pitches and draft some written content. And then if you want or need to reach out to me later, I will make myself available. If you guys want to send me your descriptions, I can help and review them and then help you from there. They are, this is a living document, something that it should be ever changing as you are artists, and art is ever changing. But as Taylor said, I'm Kristina Kirkenaer-Hart. I'm the Director of Cultural Tourism and the Dallas Music Office at Visit Dallas. And the Dallas Music Office is brand new, so if you want to, we have two of our musicians sitting in the back. And if you want to follow us at Dallas Sounds on Instagram, please do. But my background, so I'm going to ask that you guys don't write right now and just listen. And because I want you to hear and take note of what pops up in the story I'm about to tell you. So my background is dance. I was a professional dancer in New York City. I toured internationally and nationally. Upon the company I was with going bankrupt, or folding, I had kind of a epiphany moment. What do I do next? I had started auditioning again. I was getting to like runner-up placement in the companies I was auditioning for, and I was like, what am I doing? You know, I had 7 years of professional career. I'd been in the New York Times. I'd had, written write-ups and all this stuff, and I was like, maybe this is it. Maybe I should just be proud of this moment and try to figure out what's next. So what's next for me was my grandparents actually started a dance company in Oslo, Norway, a dance school and children's dance company. And it was to counter the elitist opera school because they believed that dance should be accessible to all. They ran it for 50 years, or my grandfather died, but my grandmother ran it for 50 years. And in that moment of like crisis that I was like, what am I doing? She offered me the school. So I was newlywed 1 year into the marriage, and my husband and I packed up all our stuff from New York and moved to Oslo, Norway, where we ran the school for about 8 years. He started a school for arts entrepreneurship for theater artists, and I ran the dance school and the professional children's dance company. That company was attached to the National Theater, so anytime they needed professional children, they called me, and I sent them professional children. They did all kinds of shows with them. We toured to Turkey, Italy, Denmark, Sweden. We toured all over. It was really, really a fun time. We had our daughter when we lived there. And then my husband is an alumni of SMU. So he was looking to actually create a relationship with the theater school and SMU to do some sort of like summer exchange. And upon having that conversation, they were like, actually, we're looking for a director of arts entrepreneurship here at Meadow School of the Arts. Are you interested? And we had been there for we'd been in Norway for about 8 years, and running two businesses with a baby, we were kind of burned out. And had really, and it was a lot. So we were ready to move back stateside. Upon moving back, I then was kind of flailing, to be totally honest with you. I didn't know what was next for me. You know, he had his job at SMU, but then what do? You know, people couldn't really wrap their heads around me having run a professional children's dance company. That was odd. And my dance career had been 8 years prior, so I was no longer necessarily relevant in that space. So I taught dance, I choreographed for Broadway Dallas a little bit. I, you know, went in and out of dance spaces, but still was like, I don't know. So I went back to school. I went and got my double master's, master's in arts administration at Meadow School of the Arts, and I got my MBA at Cox School of Business. But being that I was an older student at the time I went back to school, I really was super driven. I mean, I was like, I'm gonna get to know anyone and everyone in the community, in the nonprofit community, in the arts community. I wanna know anyone anyone who will sit down and have coffee with me. I wanna meet them. And then at the end of every conversation, I said, who do I need to meet next? Who's next on this? Who should I have on my roster? And I interned in 4 different organizations to just kind of see if I fit, if it was the right fit for me. I was actually hired by the Dallas Arts District Foundation before I even graduated, which was awesome. And I worked there for 4 years. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's kind of the Chamber of Commerce for the Dallas Arts District here in Dallas. And then after 4 years there, the person who was in my role prior to me, her husband got a job in Portland, and she was like, I actually think you would really love this role. Are you interested? And so, and I said yes immediately. So now instead of just the Dallas Arts District, I get to look at all of the arts and culture in Dallas. So cultural tourism just means all the fine arts in Dallas. I have 89 organizations that I keep an eye on annually. I manage a grant for $1.7 million every year. 93 organizations have received funding this year, so I have to keep an eye on that. It's up to $25,000 per grant. And then we just launched the Dallas Music Office. The beauty of that is that I'm building it from scratch, which is so exciting. For those of you who don't know, Dallas is a certified music-friendly city from the Texas Music Office, and the Dallas Music Office is just the local office out of the state in order to manage our local music scene here. So that's my story, and I would like you to just raise your hand and tell me what you heard, what popped, what thing resonated, yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. There's no wrong answers. Even if you remember the wrong thing. Yeah? Norway, yeah.
My brain is wondering what happened to your dance school.
It still exists. I have 3 alumni of my grandparents. They are co-oping it. They're still running it. Yeah.
Oh, just the rug being pulled out from under initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
You went back to school after you were a mom and got your MBA.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, an older student, yeah.
Yeah. So you were on a dance company that went bankrupt, and then you opened your own, or you inherited your grandparents' dance school.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Anything else? Yeah, okay, so I think that took me maybe 3 minutes or so to tell. And typically with an elevator pitch, you don't get 3 minutes. I'll be totally honest with you. We are going to practice at a 3-minute level so that you can really kind of think through your things. I would like to just go through this worksheet and talk through these before you start telling your stories to each other. I'll explain the workshop side of it in a minute, but we're going to go through this worksheet so that you understand like the key and highlighted elements of your elevator pitch and artist bio. Just so you know, the reason I teach them together is because they live together. your artist bio and your elevator pitch, regardless of your medium, go together. Your elevator pitch you should always have one that's 30 seconds, a minute, and then you can have a longer story as well. But that 30 seconds is really the one that should be super practiced and ready to go at any minute. Yeah, and 30 seconds is longer than you think. I promise. I promise. Hi, welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this. Did you get a sheet? Yes, yeah, okay. All right, so I did my story, but I also have like a work elevator pitch. If somebody's like, what do you do? I've got that. You should definitely have a handful of different avenues that all lead to the same thing. So you're gonna have some like core 3 to 5 bullet points that you always end up saying, no matter what. But how you start your story depends on the audience and who you're in front of. Okay, so lead with your why, like stories stick, right? I told you tonight was a personal story. It's my personal like path to why I am and why I am where I am now. But if we were just to talk about my role and what I do, I would have left out a lot of the personal pieces. But I always say that I was a dancer, and I always say that I went back to school, and that I have those qualifications. So I'm an artist, and I have the degrees, right? So those are 2 of my bullet points that stick with whatever story I'm ever telling. So it could be a light bulb moment. It could be I was experimenting and all of a sudden I, ended up creating this mess, but the mess became really cool and I decided to get into it and then it ended up being like now what I do, right? It could be anything like that. It could be, from a little kid, your grandparents, introduced you to how to play a guitar and you've just always done it. It's been secondary to what you do and you've never known your life without. Or, right, like all of these little things are kind of these guiding pieces to what makes you uniquely different, like in this space. You all have unique stories. In this space, we should hear, however many people you are, something different from each of you, even if you grew up together, right? Even if you're siblings or even if you're best friends and have known each other forever and have been on paths like this, we should hear something that is very different out of everybody's mouth tonight. Okay, so be authentic. I mean, I know that is easy to say, but sometimes when we're in front of audiences that make us nervous, we start saying weird stuff comes out and you're like, what, right? And you're like, why did I say that? And then it becomes, and then you're either backtracking or you're just following that weird thing that came out of your mouth. So that's why you practice. So that's why you practice your elevator pitch. That's why you do your 30 second. That's why you do your 1 minute. That's why you follow through and really, these things should be easy to pluck whenever needed, and it's because you've practiced it. So keep it clear and concise, simple and direct language. Don't overcomplicate what you do. Find words that are specific enough that defines you, but don't overcomplicate it, right? Don't wax poetic on and on to the point where you've lost your audience, It should be really, I've had everything from, some people have said oh, my art speaks for itself. Well, does it? Always. And I appreciate that perspective. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you should feel something when you see art, and your response to that is going to be. But when I know that there's a personal story behind it, or if somebody tells me like a little nugget, I can tell you that all of the art that I've bought from living artists has been because there was some story that caught my attention. Yes, I instinctually liked the art. Yes, I was instinctually drawn to it from the get-go, but then the story was the thing that looped me in, right? Yeah, so offer just enough context. Does that make sense for you guys? I mean, it's kind of, I did kind of repeat myself there, but you know, you don't need to go into like, this took me, you know, I don't know, 21 days to make, and you know, I mean, yes, if somebody asks you eventually, like, how long did it take you to write this? Or how long did it take you to create this? Or whatever, then you give those pieces, those facts. But really, like, when I say use just enough context, it's you have to hook them on that front end really quickly. So whatever that hook is, that thing, which we will discover tonight, we will give you some of these hooks. Is the thing that you should always say, right? Like I've got my 2 things that I always say, no matter what direction, like your hook is the thing that you're always going to say, right? Whether it's sound, whether it's writing, whether it's art, no matter what the medium, again. So always use an active voice. So again, this is kind of where waxing poetic can happen. So I explore identity through texture. I actively do, right? That is better than like identity is this, like that's waxing on something that you feel and think, and that is not the case. It's where you come from and what you do. Everybody follow that? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Some of this is easier said than done, but I promise we will practice tonight. Okay, ending with a call to action. So no matter what, whether you've got 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever, at the end, like I asked you guys to follow Dallas Sounds today, right? Part of my pitch, right? I'm the director of the new Dallas Music Office. You guys should follow us at Dallas Sounds. So I'm giving you something, an action to do. Follow me on Instagram. Here's my QR code. Here, right? Please come to my exhibit, right? Give them something actionable to do, because if they are giving you even a moment of their time, they are curious. So keep them, right? You want to keep them going. So you're going to format for flow. So I told you a linear story, right? But depending on who your audience is and what the end goal is of that moment, this is why you practice, so that the flow is super easy. And that flow matters whether it's coming out verbally or if it's written. So like your pitches, practice out loud. You're going to practice in front of your mirror. You're going to practice in front of somebody who hasn't seen your art or heard you, or right. You're gonna do it every morning in the mirror until you've done it so much that and you can have your sheet of paper or something or your notes beside you in the bathroom. But like as you're getting ready or doing your hair, the more natural and like action oriented you can be, the less formal it'll feel the next time you have to pull this thing out. Writing wise, you want to make sure it's broken up in short, like bite-sized paragraphs, and that there's sort of like if I skim it, I'll see those highlighted words: Norway, bankrupt company. Like I'll see those things kind of if I skimmed your artist bio, and I can get like kind of the gist really quickly. Okay, so edit, refine, repeat. You should always have somebody look at your written work. Always, always, always. It's better if they don't know your work, because they might have questions and they won't make assumptions, right? So if a friend is reading it, And I don't mean I just mean someone close to you. Like, don't have somebody close to you do it. Maybe in the beginning, just out of will you take a look at this? But eventually you want to have people who don't really know what you do, or know your art form, take a look at it, because they might be like, if you ask, what did you get out of it? Or, what do you think my paintings look like? Or what do you think my sound is? If they don't articulate it the way you wrote it, then you need to go back to see how you're telling those things and how that story is coming out, right? So adding credibility, that's always good. It's one thing for you to say how awesome and great and marvelous you are and how interesting and how amazing your art is. It's another thing to be like, and I've won this award, or I had a write-up, or, any kind of credibility that someone else validated your work. You just want to plant those little seeds. And then lastly, this thing, like I said, at the very top of this is a living and breathing work in progress, right? Your elevator pitch should always be up to the most current thing. And what I recommend is so say if I were to tell my story 10 years from now, let me say it this way. So I used to tell my story, I would tell where I went to high school, which was North Carolina School of the Arts, a boarding arts high school. And then I went to Tisch for undergrad in New York City. I cut that off because now my story has gotten longer. And so those end pieces, right? So that's kind of irrelevant. I mean, it depends on who I'm in front of. If it's a dance heavy space, I might mention those two things because they matter to dancers. But I drop off the earlier stuff because the later stuff is more important, right? Like what you're doing now is more important. But it still is part of my story, right? So if I have the time to tell it, I'll tell that bookended piece, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So like I said, it's a flowing, working thing. It will never be stagnant. You should always take a look at your artist statement at least annually. I think every 6 months, because you as creatives are always kind of flowing, and just tweak it. You could tweak adjectives. You can, if you're working on something new, if you've won an award, right? All of those things need to be kind of updated in there. And if it becomes stagnant and doesn't match your current, right? You really, really want to stay relevant for yourself more, almost more than anything, right? So I put the don'ts in the bottom as well. They really are just, the opposite of some of the do's, and just to really kind of emphasize the ones, again, don't over explain, right? That's it's the waxing poetic, don't, you will lose people, right? And attention spans are even shorter than ever before, right? So you want to make sure that you're still capturing them and the audiences. Do not skip editing and practicing. Those two things are 100% necessary, and it's just part of you as an artist and a creative. These things should be at the ready all the time. So formatting is important. Make sure if somebody's looking at your website online that the formatting is the same or readable as it would be on a computer and that kind of thing. I mean, these are low-hanging fruit things, but sometimes people forget or don't know what it looks like in one space or another. And don't focus on getting it right. It's much better for it to be your voice than anything else. And so don't get stuck on oh, I should have, or if you're standing in a social networking space and you're oh, it's the first time I'm going to practice my elevator pitch. And then you're oh, I didn't say it exactly as that script. And you start, the thing you've scripted and practiced. Like you will have practiced it at this point so much that it will flow and be your natural voice. And but if you like skip a beat or skip a sentence that you and after, like, don't get hung up on that. Like, it's really more that like you're connecting with someone who's interested in what you do. That, bottom line, that is the most important part of this, right? And next time you'll remember that sentence because you forgot it this time, right? So you'll never forget it again. Okay, so before we start the sort of active participation piece of this, do you guys have any questions or thoughts on, you know, what that was or how it was presented? Don't be afraid. Yeah.
I guess for me, like, I feel like when I'm writing something about myself, I'm using the word I constantly and over again. And I'm just wondering, like, does that matter or?
Yeah, so I don't have that in here, but artist statements should be in the third person. So you should be writing it. So mine says like, Kristina has a career, 30-year career in the arts and da da da, right? Like it's written, but I wrote it.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like it wasn't someone else writing about me. Yeah. So yeah. So your artist statement should always be in the third person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the difference between the bio and the statement? Sometimes they don't want.
Yeah, so the bio, I gave you my bio really this morning, or first, right? So that was really like, but if I were to talk about, if this were more of a formal work environment and I was only talking about what I do, I would pluck like those two things I said that are personal, and then I would talk about work. And your artist statement is talking about the work, your bio is how you got there. Does that make sense? Yeah, your bio is your personal story. Your artist statement is the work. Those things overlap, yes, because you can't have one without the other, right? How you got to the art is because you are who you are. Yeah. Anything else before we get started?
Bio's in the third person too?
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Growing up in the Northeast, Kristina, took dance classes from, right? That would be my bio. Dance has always been a part of her life, right? Like, so, yeah, right? Something like that. And I will tell you that the proof is in this pudding. So I have done this workshop 3 times here and a few other times elsewhere. And I have had artists say, oh my gosh, the other day I was so nervous. I was in front of somebody and I was so nervous. And I was so glad that I had been practicing, and that we worked on the elevator pitch, because without even thinking about it, it just flowed out of me. And yeah, and then I've read some of the artist statements that after doing this workshop, and I mean it's like night and day with the effectiveness and how it's coming across. So I promise you, I am also available after this, so you can send me your artist statements, and I'm happy to look at them and tell you what I take from it, and you can tell me if that's what you meant. You can anytime. I'm here a lot, so and you can always practice your elevator pitches on me if you see me walking through the hall. Anyway, so like again, this is a.
So do you have an extra set of dark glasses and a hat?
And then, in disguise, a little mustache with a nose and yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. You won't need any paper or anything to write with. You can actually put that all aside. What we're gonna do is you're gonna